Welcome to Hold Fast, the LARP Podcast, Episode 7, Big Tom's Tall Tales, hosted by Tony Preston and Erica Tobin, with guest host Michael Moggy.
Gather round, everyone. I'll tell you a story before bed, just like I promised. Now, tonight's tale was a little heavier than usual, maybe even a little scary. It's a tale of greed and violence, regret and sorrow, redemption and revenge. But I think you kids are old enough to hear it, and it's important you do, because tonight's tale is the story of how Big Tom, yours truly, escaped the clutches of a vicious and merciless slave trader, and went on to build this community we see here today. You know, I was just a young man when I decided it was time to leave my home in Appleville. I came from a family of blacksmiths, and though I had become quite skilled with a hammer and anvil, I knew it was not the life for me. I wanted more adventure, you know, so I set out to stretch my legs, make a name for myself, find my destiny. Unfortunately, the destiny I found wasn't exactly what I had in mind. No, sir. For just a few short months after I had left home, I found myself within the inescapable grasp of the ruthless slave trader, Nero von Balthazar. Nero found me working as a mercenary along the coastal cities, and experienced naivete leading the way. I was a painfully easy mark for him. So while under the guise of hiring me, I was assaulted and brought into his trade. Though he was not a large or particularly strong man, he was a fearsome fellow indeed. He could get into your head, manipulate you. I was just a lad, and though I was a big fella, much bigger than him, mentally I was as weak as a kitten. He spent months torturing me, wearing me down, and remolding my mind so escape felt impossible. I feared him more than anything I had ever feared in my life. And that fear caused me to go along for years, doing what I had to do to survive, doing a lot of unspeakable things. I felt hopeless, less than human. Eventually, he began to trust me, and knowing I wouldn't run, he cut me in on a swindle. It worked like this. I'd go into a small town or encampment, scout 'em out, make nice, lead a few of 'em off by themselves, and kidnap 'em for Nero. The folks, just wanting to see their loved ones return safely, would pay up. Those who couldn't, well, like I said, Nero was merciless. Now, we could run this hustle successfully a couple of times a month, affording Nero a humble salary, as well as a number of slaves and minions. But after the new devastation hit, well, things changed. In 427, a great, powerful storm ravaged Annam and left it in ruins. Rain and tsunamis, tornadoes and earthquakes, massive forest fires, you name it. The elders say this weren't the first time such a storm had occurred, and that the island must be cursed. But one man's curse is another man's opportunity. With a large portion of the population wiped out, Annam's forces weren't as strong as they once were. Nero practically had free reign to do whatever he wanted. His reputation, power, and most importantly his pockets, grew massively. What was once a humble trade was on track to grow into an empire. But while Nero enjoyed his spoils, I was left wondering what had become of the family I'd left behind. What fate had they met in the new devastation? I convinced Nero we should head back east along the coastal cities we hadn't hit in a while. I hope in my heart I'd catch a glimpse of someone, anyone, from my past. But upon arrival, kids, my worst fears were confirmed. As we approached the southern borders, I could see just how bad things had gotten. Appleville was in tatters, needing to be rebuilt almost entirely from scratch. I asked an innkeep if there were any signs of my loved ones. He hung his head and solemnly informed me that my entire family had vanished. There had been no signs of them since the storm had hit, neither body nor resurrection. A twinge of regret began to build in my belly. All the years I had wasted, all the awful things I had done, just for a chance to reunite with them. I never got to properly tell them goodbye. Perhaps it was for the best. Perhaps it was better their last memories were of me, happy, and not of the monster I had become. There wasn't a minute to mourn before Nero had me back to work. We continued through Appleville and travelled north until we happened upon a shabby outpost in the east. With our encampment set up along the outskirts, I wandered in and began to scout for some targets. The new devastation had too left this place in total disaster. Though the few meagre buildings it had remained standing, the grounds were sogged and marshy. The air was thick and felt dirty in the lungs. And even more odd, it was much colder than I had expected for those summer months. I wondered how anyone was still living here, and how they had even managed to survive the storm on their own. There was nothing really special about the place or the folks living in it. In fact, many of them looked real worn down, real tired. Now, don't get me wrong, there were a few that looked like they might have put up a fight, but nothing I couldn't handle. But as I picked out a few to kidnap, I couldn't help but take notice how kind and trusting the people of Holdfast were. Normally, I'd scoff and take pity on anyone with such a foolish outlook. When you trust so quickly, you deserve what's coming to you. But, perhaps a little fragile from my recent loss, this time, it warmed my heart. I could feel Nero's grip on me begin to loosen, but I didn't want to see him bring his wrath down on these innocent folks. So I got back to work. First, I managed to capture one of their warriors. I knew he'd catch a high price. Next, I captured a rather talkative guy. A book-reading type, you know. A man who babbles like that is easy to get out on his own. Perhaps a bit too willing to learn you something, you know. I knocked him out, and I brought him to camp. Then I captured a cute little halfling lady, a favourite of Nero's. Not only are halflings an easy hunt, them being so tiny and all, but they're considered among many to be the best slaves. I thought when I brought her back, he'd be more than satisfied with today's captures. But I was wrong. Nero had become cocky, more and more power-hungry. He demanded I go back for a fourth. I started to feel that twinge in my gut again. Pushing it down, I obeyed. I set my targets on a young lady. She held a bow, one of those ranger types I gathered, and from what I could tell, no other weapons. At close range, I figured a bow wouldn't be much use to her, and she'd be an easy carry out of the woods. Like the others, I led her down a trail with simple small talk. When I was sure we were out of sight, I bopped her on the head and hoisted her up over my shoulder. Another easy victim. Or so I thought. As I hurried to carry her to camp, we ran into an unexpected problem. A giant snake. Now, I knew I couldn't outrun such a creature on a good day, and especially not with the body on my shoulder. So I dropped her and hightailed it. But, as expected, the critter caught me and swallowed me whole. Now, I know what you kids must be thinking, but truth be told, I was safer in the belly of that snake than I was in the outside world. When the folks found the girl and revived her, she told them everything. And when they saw a snake with a giant lump in its belly, well, suppose you can guess what happened. They don't call me Big Tom for nothing. Cut from the snake, I was beaten and interrogated. It was then I realized how grossly I had underestimated this group. I tell you, some of them had mental mind tricks better than Nero. They forced out of me who I was and what I was doing, all about Nero and his schemes. Once they had the information they needed, I was bludgeoned and left for dead. Yes, it looked like, for the second time in an hour, it was the end for Big Tom. But to my surprise, I woke up. Aching and paining, not sure what had happened, standing over me was the girl, the one with the bow I tried to kidnap. She jerked her head, beckoning me to follow her. She had an arrow nocked, and a look on her face that told me we weren't about to go for a cup of tea. No, sir. However, I didn't have many other options. I was stripped of my weapons, my armor, my money. I had no choice but to do as she asked. As I walked with her, I tried to work my charm, pleading my case, showing her my many scars that Nero had inflicted on me over the years. I promised that if she let me go, I'd free her friends and return them unharmed. Now, these were promises that, deep down, I knew I couldn't keep, and I think she knew that too. Sometimes you gotta say what you've gotta say to keep a silver-tipped arrow out of your back. She walked me to the edge of the trail leaving town and stopped. But behind us, more were following, perhaps curious as to what she was doing with me. It would seem, with the oncoming witnesses, she was hesitant to carry out her plan. She looked at the crowd, then back at me, and with a glare, she said, "Big Tom, I once knew a man like Nero. Come back here with him, or don't come back at all." I promised her I wouldn't, and children, this time, I kept my word. Surrounded by bodyguards and the knight I captured with a dagger to his neck, Nero carried out his regular routine in front of the people of Holdfast. Confidently, he paced the crowd, bragging about his riches, taunting what a good master he was. Nero always did have a flair for the dramatic. He gave them their options: pay the ransom he was asking, or say goodbye to their friends. He offered them just 5 minutes to gather the money, and began to count. Normally, I would tune this part of the routine out. It was too awful to listen to. But not this time. I took everything in and was becoming increasingly more sick to my stomach. I felt like a kettle that was about to boil over. 4 minutes. I scanned the crowd and I saw the girl again, the ranger who had let me go. She stood on the outskirts of the group in some tree cover, calm, a smirk on her face, with an arrow ready to fly. Oh no. 3 minutes. I was not the only one to spot her. Nero's guards were ferociously protective of him. They demanded she drop her bow. She refused. Tensions mounted as the final minutes slipped away. I shook my head at her, silently begging her not to do what she was about to do. She just smiled. 1 minute. What happened next is hard to recall. The arrow was loose, and all bets were off. Just like I had, Nero greatly underestimated the power of this group. When I watched them courageously take us on, something within me snapped. My family was dead. So many wasted years fearing Nero. I should have stood up for myself and returned to them. Maybe they'd still be alive. My mind raced. I was incensed. Without thinking, I grabbed a sword from one of the fallen henchmen and attacked, slashing and slashing, releasing the rage of all those wasted years upon Nero. When he realized just how outnumbered he was, and that I had turned on him, he fled. Injured, he ran to the woods until I lost sight of him. And just like that, I was free. The people of Holdfast were still suspicious of my intentions, but agreed to let me stay a while, regain my strength, and get on my feet, as it were, just until I decided what to do with my newfound freedom. But I already knew. I had to kill Nero. Not just kill children. I had to destroy him. His evil was boundless, and I knew after today the hatred in his heart would only grow stronger. I didn't know where to start, but luckily I didn't have to look far, for that very same night Nero returned. Well, that's enough for tonight, kids. It's getting late. I'll tell you the rest of the story another time. Now go on. Bedtime.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing?
I'm good. How we? Yeah, your mic is on. You can talk.
Okay, that's
Hi.
great. So I didn't know if I was like, because you were just showing me that you could turn me off with a flick of a button.
I can listen. And this is exactly what I wanted to get into. We are on a whole other level here this episode right now, folks. I can look, mic gone. It's just me. You guys don't get to talk anymore. Mic's on.
Hey,
Yes.
this is great.
Oh, Tony, you turned off.
So you're too
You
loud.
back on.
Stop that.
So, if you guys aren't able to notice, hopefully you can notice by now, but we are actually in a full-fledged recording studio right now, recording this episode of the podcast.
And that is super, super exciting.
We're
Very
so
exciting.
stoked. The people at CHMR, the MUN radio station, have graciously allowed us to use their recording booth. So wait, I don't this is loud enough. Maybe here? Is that too loud? I don't know.
We're still working out the bugs.
Yeah, I still don't quite know how to use
I feel like
everything.
you need to, like, do your best radio voice. You're like 93.5 FM, CHMR, radio.
I have a radio face, but not a radio voice. Okay, wait. Let's do one more laugh take. 3, 2, 1. Funny joke. Hopefully that didn't hurt your ears.
See, for those of you who weren't here 5 minutes ago, we need to talk into microphones.
Yeah, we're very close to microphones right now. It's very ASMR.
Stop that.
Ish. I'm so sorry to even bring that up, but
Yep.
it is very. This is very new and interesting, and we're still. I have a full soundboard in front of me, and it's very intimidating. So hopefully this sounds good. Hopefully everything is good to go and sounds great. So let's get into it. Yes, today we are joined by Michael Moggy.
Hello.
He plays not only Degrin Brightforge, who is our resident Grand Marshal of the Knights. Is that your title?
Yeah, it was once upon a time.
Oh, has
Yeah.
something changed? We'll get into that later. But he also, you just heard his voice in the story. He is the voice and player of Big Tom.
Hello, my name is Big Tom, and I'm big, as you can see.
But can they?
Can they see you though?
You can hear it, right?
But yeah, so we're going to get into, this was, oh my gosh, what game was this? Like July game? July
I've
game.
stopped
So this
keeping
was a while ago. But I'm actually going to be interviewing kind of both of you today because Tony, Mike, and our other two friends, Alex and Jess, they took over a game and sort of guest game mastered it.
It was an event director. That's what we
Yeah.
are.
There we go. Yeah, guest event director.
Well, essentially, for that, all we really wanted to do was give our beloved AD Sharon a chance to play.
That was the initial idea. That's what we wanted.
Yeah, that was the first question. So that was the point. You just wanted to give Sharon a chance to play?
It was. We wanted to give her a chance to play, but at the same time, we kind of wanted to see where we could take it.
Right. So, all right, we'll get into what happened, but how was it? How did you guys feel like you took it as far as you wanted it to go?
Let me explain something. There is a pile about 20 pages thick of ideas we wanted to do and just were impossible to implement. When we did this, you get to see the other side of what they actually do when they AD an event.
Right.
And it is insane. Like, I've seen the fabric of reality, in a sense. I understand just how small and minute all the details are that were just going over my head from before.
Yeah, you really don't realize how much work the cast puts in until you're cast.
Yeah, and
until you're putting a game
I don't know
together.
how much of it I can actually say, because is it a secret? I don't know.
What?
Don't spill anything that might be a secret.
Okay,
But
no, it's
if
not
there
really a
is
secret.
anything you say, I can
An
edit.
astute viewer may notice that our friend Rob, he's the one who puts out all the egg mods. He's responsible for all the creatures. Did you know that he keeps track of the season that creatures are out? Like, for example, you may never see a spider in October, even though you
Right.
probably did. Marv can attest to that. But no, every creature has like a breeding season, and they have cycles, and they have like a diet, and they have like things that go wrong. So if something interrupts an ecosystem, he's on top of it, and he's making everything happen according to that.
So he was going over all of this stuff with you.
Yeah, so I was like, it'd be really great if we could probably bring in some lizard folk. And he's like, no,
It's not season.
they're not in season.
Whoa, Rob.
So what do you mean they're not in season? He's like, I keep track of this. And I was like, well, can I see? And then that's like classified.
That's really cool.
Yeah, he's right on top of that kind of stuff. That's
dedicated.
why they call him the Beastmaster.
Oh, yeah.
And
No, it's
not only
because
Well,
he
I mean,
can run us all down.
Yeah,
like the
also
pansies
because
we
he's
are.
I
terrifying.
mean, that's why I call him the Beastmaster. But not even just the beasts. He keeps track of the flora and what else?
Yeah. So like, for example, you won't like winter mint, for example, might grow in May, but it won't grow in October.
And so that affects the egg mods as
Yeah.
well.
And he's also been keeping track of items from how they were changed during the recent games where everything was kind of down. Like, the Earth Circle was dead. So the items we were finding, not only were they deadly, but we were getting fewer items.
Right.
So I found on one rock, this big, nasty rock, 2 level 3 egg mods. One level 3 egg mod had, like, glorious items in it. It was just like fucking payday. Am I allowed to swear?
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
Okay.
there was once upon a time we used to edit that out, but now we're just like, who gives a fuck?
All
Like,
right.
I'm not doing all that work. Also, just for those of you out there who don't know what an egg mod is, in our game, if you're going and just traveling, doing some exploring in the woods, and you come across a little Kinder Egg plastic cup thing, like, you know, those little things that the toys come in, you can open those and they could have like some items in it for you. They could totally ruin your day. They could kill you, etc.
Yeah,
So
they can ruin days.
yeah, we just have like these little extra egg mods. They're just little extra things to do within game.
Yeah,
Sorry,
they're like
continue
little
your story.
gathering lures or
Anyway,
something.
they were
Yeah.
both level 3, meaning you need a geology level of 3 to get them, which conveniently I had. So I picked one up, and one was Payday, and the other had a quarter unit of metal in it, which is not very much. So one was from, like, this is obviously him transitioning, right? Because we had just done the storyline where we fixed this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was transitioning from being bad to good, and I found that on one rock. And I don't think that was a mistake, because he keeps track of where he puts things. Like, every single egg mod that goes down, it's there for
Yeah,
a reason.
his attention to detail is amazing.
Yeah. And I just ignore it most of the time. I never realized it was happening. I never even tried to realize it was happening until I was trying to do it myself.
Oh, you guys had to do the egg mods yourself?
No, we let him do that.
Oh.
But no, the point, well, it's because I was trying to bring in different creatures, which were just big no-nos.
So, would you guess AD again? Event direct again?
In a heartbeat.
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
we loved it.
Oh,
it was
good.
such a
It
good
was
time.
a lot of work.
Even though like a couple things didn't go exactly according to plan.
I'm sorry.
But listen, that has nothing to do with your abilities as an event director and everything to do with LARP.
I mean,
as a whole.
honestly, even though stuff didn't go nearly what we thought it would or what we had planned, it turned out to be such a great game anyway because of the just on the spot.
Character interaction, just it's so amazing and bewildering.
When I used to run a LARP, I would think out a mod, and then I would sit down, what's the best case scenario that could happen? Like, what could the players do? And I had like all these scenarios planned out and what I was going to do if that's what they did, and then they just think of something totally fucking random, and I was like, shit. But what I do want to say is, even though I could only make that game for Saturday, but I will say that the Big Tom mod specifically was one of my favorite things to happen
You know that
this
wasn't
season.
supposed to happen.
Yeah, no, that wasn't supposed to happen
the
at all.
That was my next question. Look, I have a whole little cue card of questions here,
Almost might be
dang it.
useful if I were to have that in front of me, so I'd stop answering questions beforehand.
No, but that's okay because it's flowing organically. We
yeah.
love it. But that's what I was going to ask you. Did you think Big Tom was going to be as impactful as he was? Like, what
No.
was the plan?
His plan was to kidnap people and bring them to Nero and be blindly loyal to Nero.
And then
There
that
was
was it.
no question of what Big Tom, Nero. They're together. They're strong and they come as a pair. And it's just the players moved my heart so much. Like when they showed up and they had Pierre at knife point, I was supposed to be the one holding the knife. But the way things worked out, it just didn't happen. And for the record, had I been the one holding the knife, he'd have been dead. I was watching it from afar, and I was just keeping tally. And I was like, he'd be dead for that. He'd be dead for that. Because it was like hair trigger. The very smallest of things was meant to be cut his throat, initiate the fight.
Right.
And whoever they had holding it at the time, I think it might have been.
It was
Amy.
Pepper.
Pepper? Yeah.
Yep.
He didn't. I was like, kill him. Kill him.
Kill him now.
And then I saw that shot that you had hit him in the arm, and I was like,
Oh, listen, I'm going to get into that shot because this is mainly the reason why this was my favorite mod. But I also thought Big Tom I just thought, and also Nero, I really wish Alex could have made it
Yeah.
to the recording tonight. We were planning to have Alex and our friend Jess also come into the recording, but of course they're adults who work, as we all
how
are.
dare they? Adults.
But yeah, our friend Alex played Nero, and he was absolutely incredible. I thought Big Tom was a super complex character. I thought everything Jess was doing was really fun. So I think you guys did a really good job. And I only got to see your lich, which we'll get into now. I only got to see your lich for a moment, but it was like it wasn't even you. So I thought you guys did a really good job. Just from an outsider's perspective, you guys really killed it. I think everyone would say that.
Thank you very much.
Oh man, thanks. We put a lot of planning
It
into
took like
this,
6 months.
and like that was just for one event. So the fact that Sharon and the rest of the cast have to like do this for like 6 events
Well,
is
see, Sharon went out of her way to prove a point.
Every time you hit the table, we can hear it.
Okay, Sharon went out of her way to prove a point, and that point is that you can never be prepared for what the players are going to do.
Yeah, we had situation A, situation B, and then we thought that should be good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
We needed was situation A to Z.
Because when everyone decided to follow the bandits afterwards, that's when Nero escaped that fight,
We're
right?
sitting there and they're like, let's go hunt them down. We're like, were we ready for that? The answer was no, ladies and gentlemen.
We were not.
No, we're not.
So whatever happened after that was completely improvised.
So I'll get a little bit into plot. After that fight broke out, Nero had the halfling and the talkative guy we were talking about, who is Professor Pendergast, and I think the halfling's name is Lilium.
Yep.
Lilium. He had both of them up at the camp there.
Yep.
And Pendergast actually ended up dying. Can you guys talk about that a little bit?
Well, the idea initially was when Nero came into town with his little posse, the rules were if they tried anything funny, then the two hostages that we had would, bite the bullet. But that's only if they tried anything funny.
Yeah.
But when that fight broke out and Nero escaped, I mean, y'all pulled a stupid. So when Alex...
As always.
It was you and Sharon. It wasn't
true.
just you, because you were sitting in the woods with that shit-eating grin on your face, and that arrow knocked. And I'm sitting there going, don't do it. Because I know that George has a very detailed plan for his character, and even one death will ruin it. And I also know that I'm the one who caught him, and what the plan is if you guys fuck up. And you guys started fucking up, and I'm like, he will never forgive me. Please
I
stop.
thought Sharon was playing one of her characters that...
Sophie?
No, she was
Sophie.
playing Lynn, who is
Lynn.
Timian's daughter.
Yeah.
I thought she was trying to hand over the money, though. Or was she being a shithead
No,
too?
she was being a shit disturber.
Yeah.
Okay, love it. Fantastic. We love
was
it when
just
the
sitting
two
there.
girls come in and just ruin everyone's
She
day.
was sitting there on the grass with her legs crossed and her hands in her lap, and she was just like giving them a sideways glance, fluttering her eyebrows. And she's like, I'm not doing anything.
Fluttering
and then
her eyebrows?
Scoot forward. Not her eyelashes, sorry. And she'd scoot forward, and Alex was like, you better stop coming closer or we're going to kill him.
Right. So yeah, after the fight broke out, this did actually end up in some player deaths, which we didn't really get to get into in the story.
We didn't intend for that at all, but
this was also one of my favorite parts of this game that I wasn't even here for, but Alex tells it really well. When he was killing Pendergast, I won't say the actual player's name because I don't know if he's okay with that. But he's a real funny guy. As Alex was killing him, he started reciting Braveheart.
Well,
no, please don't.
You're missing one very important part. There were two people captured.
Right.
I think one was
Lilium.
It was Lilium and
Pendergast.
Pendergast.
Yes.
And Alex turned to them and he went, I'm going to take one of you now, but I want to kill one of you because I made a promise. But first, tell me why I shouldn't kill you. And Lilium, to her credit, did an excellent job. And if you're listening, you know what you said. But Pendergast was like, I can give you coin. I can give you knowledge. And Alex was not good enough. And he moved behind him with his dagger. And just as it was about to make the killing blow, you could just barely hear in the distance, freedom! Which was then abruptly cut off.
It was one of my favorite stories from that game. Pendergast's death. He died, but he died really well.
He died free.
So good. Okay, so I'm real quick before we move on to the other stuff. I'm real quick just going to tell the story about this arrow that I let fly because it was my favorite.
That's honestly the thing that started this shit.
It was my favorite part of the game, and I wasn't there for that long.
It was like 2 consecutive amazing shots, but I'll let you tell the story.
You killed an NPC with 100% accuracy.
Thank you, guys. That's what I do. So out of game, I have practiced archery. But in game, I use a LARP bow, which is, I mean, it's pretty high quality. It's a pretty good bow, but boffer arrows are very hard to aim, but I have gotten very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So as this whole thing is going down, Nero is in front of the crowd and he's kind of like, talking, giving his whole spiel like, oh, I'm such a great slave trader and you'll love being my slaves and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this guy's an asshole. Pierre is, in the middle, surrounded by all of the guards, and Nero is in front, and he has a guard around him with a dagger to his neck. And I have a clear shot of this guard's arm, if only one of the other guards would move out of the way. Our friend Chloe was right in the way of Pepper's arm. So I couldn't hit him without hitting her in the head.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't hit her yet, but I'm just like, I'm trying to like telekinesis Chloe to move out. What is it called? Like telepathy Chloe out of the way. Like I'm trying to like send her. I'm like, move, just move out of the way just so I can get a shot in. Like just move. And then finally she moves and I was like, heck it. And Tony was playing a guard with a bow.
Yeah.
And he was not having it. He was
Every
like,
single
"Put it down."
time I'd look away and then I'd look back at you, and every time I look back at you, you're like a couple feet closer. I was like, man, if she tries anything.
Is that why it was just like dead silence and suddenly pew because she moved?
Yeah, like I was just waiting. The second she moved, I was taking a shot. Like there was no way I was letting that go to waste because it just looked too much fun.
So it's just ignited.
Yeah, so the second Chloe moved, I was up. I looked at Tony and he was like, "Don't you fucking dare!" And I just let it go. And I have a skill in game called a crit shot, so I can call what limb I'm going to hit before I loose the arrow and double my damage.
If it hits that limb.
If it hits that limb, yeah. So I crit shot left arm, and oh baby, I hit him in the left arm. And then I walked around the rest of the cliff, the tree cover.
You can do it.
And then, I'm just really excited. And then I crit shot for his left leg. I got that, and
he just went down.
Yeah, it was one of my prouder moments this season.
good.
It was super fun. I loved that mod so much. Do you plan to bring Big Tom back?
I have no idea. He might be dead for all we know. He died a few times, so he
We're
might
about to
already
get
be
into
gone.
Not only died a few times, he died a few times twice.
He died 7 times. Yeah.
We're about to get into that, but so are there any plans to guest AD next season, or do you think our lovely AD will let you bring him back?
By now, there is a giant list of people who would love the opportunity to do this, and we feel honored that we got the chance to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we might do another ED event sometime. Whether or not that's next year, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But we would like the opportunity to try again because we already have ideas brewing.
If ever we're given the opportunity, we will take it. But we know that we have some incredibly talented and artistic people here who are just dying for the chance to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I mean, they should get the chance because I would never want to deny somebody the amazing opportunity we were given.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And
For
I think a lot of people in cast actually like the opportunity to play instead of run the show.
Yeah, it'd be great. Like maybe just once for one season, sometime in the future, just swap out the whole cast.
Oh my gosh, Sharon would never.
No, she would never. She wouldn't. She's
No,
already
This
that
is
said
her
LARP is her baby.
baby. Her
It is.
baby. So for the rest of this game, and I missed this, so you guys are going to have to fill me in even more than you already have. For the rest of this game, basically what happened was Nero came back into town, but he was undead. He had met up with a lich.
Yeah, that's another part of the story. Actually, it was the main part of the story. The bandit mob was supposed to just be a little blurb, but it turned into this.
Yeah, we were like, we have this whole morning and afternoon to fill. What do we do? Oh, let's bring in some bandits. I'll bring in a guy named Big Tom. Look, the name is just Big Tom. Anyway, bring him in and we'll just have this thing happen. And there'll be bad guys in the last because Big Tom was supposed to die and be undead.
Yeah, Big Tom was supposed to be one of the undeads that came that night.
Oh,
But
no, but
sadly-
we saved him. What do you mean sadly?
I mean, like, it was great, and I originally brought him in as a beater character. So, like, he's going to die, they're going to torture him to death, and then he'll be undead, and that was fine by me. But for whatever reason, they just kept bringing him back.
No, we
and
love
now I
you.
like him, and I might try to save up creeps and buy him as a character,
Oh, that'd be so cool.
but he comes with the baggage of...
Having died 7 times.
Yes,
Yeah.
if he kicks the bucket again, that's like 257 experience to come back.
Is it really?
Oh my god, yes.
Wow, I've never counted that
Yeah,
high.
every time you die, it doubles.
That sounded dumb. I have counted that high before,
Have
but
you
I've
ever
never
sat down and went
considered
1,
dying
2,
that
all the way
much.
to 200? I
I've
haven't.
never sat down and counted to 200.
Maybe it's time.
So yeah, you guys came back in as the Lich. Tony, you were playing the Lich.
Yes, I
Why
was.
don't you fill us in on that night? Because there's actually a lot of good stories
Oh
from
my
this.
God,
I wish
so
Alex was
much.
here because he did so much fun shit that
So
game.
much stuff happened. Well, okay, so when we were initially talking about EDing an event, way back when we brought up this idea to Sharon initially, I had one criteria for Michael, And that was I wanted to be the boss of the weekend.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I wanted to do. Even if I just had like some side stuff in the day, I wanted to be the boss in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking about what kind of boss we should bring in, and we thought of a couple things, and I thought of the idea of a lich, and then eventually we just sort of ran with that. And if you don't know, to anyone who's listening, if you don't know what a lich is basically an undead sorcerer, but he is an undead sorcerer through a very complex ritual and magical means. So the character, I actually did up a backstory for this guy, which I'm not going to tell over.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I did up an entire backstory, and my backstory and Jessica's NPC, they were tied together. She was
Which
actually
NPC?
Jessica's NPC, the mage.
Oh, like the wizard one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, our backstories were tied together. She was my adopted daughter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Spoilers.
Spoiler. Well, I mean, I'm sure people knew about it.
They might not know now.
Well, they do
Well,
now.
they definitely know now.
Boy, ladies and gentlemen. Boy.
But yeah, no, I had up an entire backstory for this lich, and I had a motive. I had a reason why he was in town. It's just not a whole lot of it came to light, but I had that work done, and our backstories were tied together.
It's difficult. Like, if you're a DM, you make this character and you give him this full backstory, and it's nearly impossible to allow that backstory to come to light without monologuing. And everybody hates monologuing, especially with people like you, Erica, kicking around, who will just shoot someone for the sake of shutting them up.
Listen,
Players
if I
are
see a good
unreliable
shot,
people.
I gotta take it.
I am the great lich from over the mountains. For thousands of years, I
Just-
have been shut up.
Straight in the face. But yeah, Tony, when you were playing, it didn't even sound like you, man.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a talent of just altering my voice to. I can make voices essentially. I can make all kinds of voices.
It was intense and it was really cool.
Was the fear, the air is ripe with it voice?
The air is rank with it.
That was the voice I was using.
Tony, that's so cool. Yeah, it didn't sound like you. Like, could you tell them a little bit? I don't want to like spoil it all. I want you to tell a little bit about like how they defeated the lich, what the whole like.
Okay.
Because I thought this was a really cool way to run a night mod
Well,
as well.
I actually can't tell this how the fight went without bringing up Alex, because Alex designed how that boss fight was going to go. He came up with all the mechanics. He came up with how it would be played out, how you would defeat the lich. So I'm going to give credit to Alex for that, because he came up with the mechanics for that fight entirely.
He killed it. It
I just
sounded
played
really
the
fun.
final boss. So essentially, I was coming into town fucking pissed off. I was an angry lich. The adventurers that had came in the night before.
Sorry, just the phrase "bitchy litchies" in my head. Can't stop grinning.
Now, the three adventurers that had come in the night before had found my phylactery, which had contained my soul, and that was the source of a lich's power.
Okay.
They found it. They kidnapped it. They stole it.
It is his baby.
I mean, yes. No tears.
Oh,
Yeah, they had taken the phylactery, they had stolen it, and they had run off. And then while they were running, they were exhausted because they had encountered this lich and he fought back. When they had ran or teleported out of there, I don't know what they did, but they came into Holdfast exhausted, and they were looking for help. So because they came to Holdfast, they were like, "Can y'all help us?" And that's how the scenario sort of broke out. So I knew where the phylactery was because I have it's my soul. I have a connection with it, right? So I can tell where it is. I just have to get to it, and that's why I'd come into town.
It's like the One Ring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, that's the same thing exactly. Actually,
Yeah.
because even without his body being alive, he was still alive because he had the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. If you destroyed the lich's body, he'd just come back because of the phylactery.
Yep. I would come back at least. I think it was next to the phylactery, right?
Yeah.
So the goal of this fight was actually to destroy the phylactery.
Yeah.
And the adventurers had discovered a ritual to do that, but they needed help, which is why they went to Holdfast.
I love that this is the thing that Alex planned, because Alex and we both fight a lot together, like during night mods. He and I, well, our characters are married. Mike is giving me the look right now.
Where were you? Where were you in the last fight, Erica?
And
Getting marshmallows is what you were doing.
okay,
You died for it, didn't you?
we'll get into that in that episode,
That's
okay?
for you, Alex.
But I love that Alex came up with this sort of plan to defeat it anyway, because he and I love when there's like a monster to kill and there's an actual like there's a way to do it other than just beat it as hard as you can. Like there's an actual like strategy behind it. So I'm so glad that this is what he came. He's making me proud.
Yeah, it was basically a puzzle, and the players, the people of Holdfast, had to figure out the puzzle, which I mean, the adventurers had the ritual laid out, and they basically told the people of Holdfast how to go about this ritual, right? So the idea was the ritual would contain me in a specific area, a circular area, think like a magic barrier around me, and I couldn't escape it. The other players could come in and interact with me, and they can leave. I can't leave the barrier. Luckily, my spells could leave the barrier, but I'll get into that. I'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, so they had this specific area that I couldn't leave, and in order to maintain this barrier, those 3 adventurers, our NPCs, had to sort of be set up in like a triangle fashion and maintain concentration on this barrier in order for it to sustain itself. And the idea behind the ritual was to use my own power to destroy my phylactery.
Cool.
Essentially. So I had a special ability called, I think it was Channel Nova.
Yeah, it was like Void Nova.
Void Nova or something like that. And
Been a while.
yeah, it had a very long countdown. I think it was counting to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And if once I had reached 30 seconds, I emit a very large AoE attack. And AoE stands for Area of Effect. I unleash a large AoE attack that would just decimate anyone, unless the phylactery was being held by one of the NPCs. If they had the phylactery in their hand while I had the Void Nova, or while they were holding the Void Nova, then the Void Nova will be channeled into my phylactery and damage it.
Right.
And it had to be done 3 times.
So...
And every single time that I would do this attack and it would hurt my phylactery, I would take a little bit of damage and become more susceptible over time.
It also would kill whoever was holding it.
Yes.
So if one of the players was holding it when that went off, it would automatically kill that player.
Did that happen?
No.
No, they managed to get it to an NPC every time.
Every single time. But the amount of skirmishes that were in the field when this was going down, this was like an hour and a half fight, guys.
Yeah.
This was like an hour and a half
crazy.
to 2 hours fight. It was phenomenal. I had such a blast.
Who would you guys say, and don't say their real names, say their character names, which characters do you think stood out as the heroes of the Lich battle?
I definitely want to say Lynn for starters, because Sharon...
She doesn't mind if we use her name.
Yeah, God bless her. Okay, there was 2 times where I had actually gotten the phylactery back, right? So... while this fight was going around, I had my own undead minions that I can just call to me at any time, right? If they went down, I can bring them back up to full and they can just wreak havoc. Now, they weren't that powerful, but the idea was to, at least have something to combat the players and maybe get my phylactery back. Once I had gotten the phylactery back, I mean, the game was almost over then.
If you got it, he'd be indestructible. The thing is that a minion who picked up the phylactery was supposed to be slowed down by all the dark energy within it, and they were meant to kind of struggle to bring it towards their master. But nobody told Pepper that. So he got it, and he fucking football ran it. He booked it, and I watched. I was like,
he passed the baton to me. He just gave me the phylactery, and I was like, yes, I have it.
I'm sitting there going, oh
held
no.
it in my hand, and Pierre, man, he ran up to me, jumped, did a freaking vertical jump, basketball slapped the phylactery out of my hand. It rolled onto the ground, rolled out of the barrier. I couldn't get to it. Someone picked it up and ran away with it and hit it.
He doesn't kid around when it comes to LARPing.
What was really perfect is that the phylactery was this glowing blue orb.
Which could be seen at night, which was helpful.
And it was foggy, so it had an aura about it. So when you saw him bat it, it kind of flickered, and it was and it just hit the black ground and rolled, illuminating the ground. And then you saw these black bodies descend upon it, trying to grab it. And I'm sitting there. I was dying at that point. But I was sitting there going, who got it? Because, yes, I was an NPC, but if everybody dies, I will never hear the end of it. So
I heard, actually, there were quite a few character deaths during your game.
And then I watched Sharon just... skitter away. And I was like, yes, you go, girl.
That's another thing. Even before the whole Pierre thing where he heroically bat the phylactery out of my hand, before that, there was another instance where I had the phylactery again. And I don't know. I honestly don't know who passed to me this time, but I was holding it. And I was like, I have it again. and Sharon's character, Lynn, came up and just out of nowhere tackled me to the ground.
Can you tackle a lich?
Well, she
Yes,
did.
apparently. He's
I
still
was
but a mortal man.
I was vertical, and then I was horizontal. That's all I remember. My glasses flew off.
There was a
love
lot
that.
of like
There was so many.
physical violence in this game.
There was so many clutch moments in that fight. It was so. The tension was so high.
So, another thing that kind of happened that sort of leads, or sort of like, you know, the second part of our story, which we probably won't get into in another story episode, but Nero came back as an undead, and you, Big Tom and Nero sort of just had it out throughout the whole night, right?
Well, see, like
Here's the thing: when everyone went to go after Nero, this was after he had killed Pendergast, right? He was just about to pack up and go, and he's like, "This isn't worth it." The people who followed after him from Holdfast met him in the woods, and then a battle broke out. They managed to kill Nero, a couple of his NPCs, and my NPC they actually took back to Holdfast and questioned.
you were Little Tom.
I was Little Tom.
Hey. I remember that now.
Oh, how was it being an archer, by the way?
Oh my god, it was so much fun.
It's the best,
and
right?
Not to brag, but I knocked an arrow out of someone's bow. I can't remember who it was. I think it definitely wasn't Lilium. It was yours. You had an arrow knocked, and I shot an arrow. I knocked the arrow out of your bow. Which
Is you sure it was me?
I'm pretty sure it was you. I'm pretty sure it was you.
I don't remember this, but I'll take your word for
She
it.
just remembers the cool thing.
Yeah, I just remember that like dope ass shit I did.
Yeah, I was an archer for that. But back to the fight. They had managed to kill Nero, and they cut off his head. But then they just left him in the forest to just rot. And then they ran away. And then at me as my NPC walking down from the forest thinking, I'm coming in as a lich later and I'm going to raise some undead. If he's still up there, I'm going to raise Nero and it's going to be hell. And that's exactly what happened. Because the lich had found Nero's body and basically reattached the head and brought him back to life. So the lich let him keep his consciousness. So the lich actually came in with Nero as one of his bodyguards, which was great. A lot of stuff happened. Nero had it out for you
It was really hard to see, but they had actually put makeup around his throat
to make it look like it's stitched together.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to talk about what happened with you and Nero that night, but specifically, I really want you to get to that Citadel story because that's my favorite story.
So the fighting is breaking out. Big Tom had been stripped of his armor and his weapon. So there I am, no armor, and I picked up somebody's axe. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's do this. And I'm helping them as much as I can, but because I have no armor, I only have my hit points. And they put me down. So I hit the ground. I'm like, okay, this is how I die. And somebody lifts me up and brings me to the Citadel. And I'm like, this is great. They're going to heal me. And Morpha starts healing me. And she's like, you're at 1. And I'm like, am I conscious? Nope. Okay. And then a couple minutes pass. You're at 2. Am I conscious? Nope. Okay then. And then a few more minutes pass, and eventually I'm at 5 HP, still unconscious, mind you. And then Gurok comes in, hefting the body of Nero. And I'm just looking down, and I can see Alex giving me the shit-eating grin. I'm like, don't you do it. And she drops him into the fire and then leaves. So he's beginning to burn. They're, like, stoking the flames so that he burns brighter.
So wait, who's in the Citadel right now?
It's me, unconscious. Father Francis.
Who's a pacifist.
He was a pacifist. Then there was Morpha,
who's a healer.
And there was
Professor Michael.
There was Michael, yeah, and there was one other person. There was I can't remember his name. Oh, I can't remember his name. He's the one who's the other Smith. With the crossbow.
Nico?
Nico, yeah. He was there.
Really? I didn't know he was
None
there.
of them were like our major combatants. So what they did is Professor Michael walks over and locks the door, and then you can hear out in the distance, just rise, my minions.
That was me calling the undead back to life.
And Alex begins to kind of like twitch and move, and then all I hear is Nico go, guys, he is moving, and he gets up ablaze, and Alex. And his weapons were in the Citadel with him, so like they left it there. And he draws his daggers, and he turns into a whirlwind of blades, and everyone's screaming, but the door is locked, and nobody can get out. And Alex is pulling these like ninja spins, these like World of Warcraft spinning attacks where he slashes and he stabs. people just drop like flies. And he walks up to me and he's like, "Ah, yes. Hello, my old friend. I see you've met with a bit of trouble. Time to die." And he holds the dagger over my throat. He's like, "Killing blow 1. Killing blow 2. Killing blow..." And then you hear it. Grapple 2. And I look down, and there's Father Francis holding onto Nero's hand, or onto his leg. And Nero looks down and goes, "Grapple 8," and kicks him in the head. And
Man,
then
Father Francis, what a bro.
he tried. Like, he tried to save me.
He's the best.
And then he finishes. He cuts my throat. He just mimes cutting my throat. So I'm like choking out, and he drags me, still choking, to the lich, where the lich begins to try to resurrect me. And then somebody came over and just punches Tony in the back of the head.
Yeah, I took a beating that
Yeah,
fight.
I hear like, "Hot!" And then they grab me and drag me away. I'm dead by now because my throat was cut. And they lay me in the inn, and I'm sitting there staring at the roof, going, "This is how this day will turn for me. I will lay here staring at the roof for the rest of the fight." And then somebody uses the essence will resurrect me, and I get up and I'm like, "We have that spell, and you guys use it on an NPC?" And then I died, and then I got resurrected, and then I died, and then I got resurrected. And
It
then
was
I died.
Hassan, right?
Yeah, but every single time I'd see... Yeah, Hassan kept bringing me back. But every single time I'd see Nero, I'd go for him because him and I were enemies now, and I hated him. And at one point, Alex is missing his arm. Somebody has disarmed him. I've got his dagger, and he runs at me, and I run at him, and we tackle each other full force and hit the ground, and neither of us can hurt the other one. And we're just, like, legitimately punching each other.
That's the best.
Like real life.
We're like
punching.
real life punching each other.
I've
And,
done
like,
that too.
I get up and he kicks me in the chest, and I fly back onto my side. And then he gets on top of me and he starts hitting me in the stomach. And it was like the most visceral fight I've ever had in game. And I don't know how many people saw it, but like I had bruises from that, and it was
I just
great.
picture you guys like awkwardly slap fighting.
No, it was fists. We were actually hitting each
That's
other.
what you think, but that's what I picture it
Okay.
actually was.
And we kept fighting, and we kept rolling around because we were like wrestling, and I feel this iron grip wrap around my ankle, and I look over, and my leg has somehow found its way across the line of the circle, and Tony's there, and he's like, "Grapple 10." And I'm like, "Grapple 4?" And he takes me, and he drags me full force.
Like, Tony, did you actually drag him?
I picked him up.
He grabbed me, and he just ran backwards. I was like, "No!" And I was desperately clawing at the ground. I cut up my hands. I was like, "No!" And then I died again.
You died 7 times that game.
It was great.
So Tony, tell us how the Lich fight ended.
Okay, so everything was going pretty okay. It was a long fight, man. It was a long fight, and about an hour and a half had passed. So the idea was, of course, just to recap, once I had done my Void Nova attack, which was the big charge attack, and the phylactery had successfully been passed on to one of the adventurers while I was channeling that attack. Once the attack went off, it damaged the phylactery, and you had to do that 3 times, which is exactly what happened. So the phylactery was passed on to one of the adventurers. Void Nova went off, killed the NPC, went to the next one. Once all 3 were down, the phylactery was destroyed. I had no power, and it was just...
You were mortal again.
I was mortal again.
You were imhotept.
Yeah, I was imhotept. So,
The verb now.
but I was still a powerful NPC. I had put an experience point into this guy. The only thing is now they can kill me. So once the barrier had gone down and the NPCs were dead and I was mortal, I was like, well, not staying here now, so I'm going to run away. As I'm running away, I raise from the dead Jess's NPC character, which was my daughter, and I told her, come along with me, we're gonna escape. And she was like, okay. So we're running, and as I'm running away, one player at a time just keeps coming up to me. I think one of them was Timian, and one of them was you, Michael. First off, Timian came running up, and he's like, he's right here, and I'm like, 15 magic, 15 magic, and he's like, and he goes down, and then as I'm running away, I can hear you running up behind me, and he's like, you're not getting away. I turn around, and I see you. I bring the sword back, and I thrust it right into your
Like
gut.
Darth Sidious.
And you go down, and I'm like,
I ran into it like a spike. You cocked it backwards and thrust it forward into my running body. And I was like,
So you go down, and I continue running. Now I'm by the Knights camp, and right ahead of me I see Pierre and someone else. I can't remember, but it doesn't matter because Pierre had the reveal oil sword.
oh no. Was it the fuck off katana?
Yeah, it was the fuck off katana. So he draws it, and he's like, Vishing! Gets me down, 50 metal bypass. I'm like, well, I'm out. So, but at this point, I had gone down on my knees, and then everybody who had run after me had caught up, and they were just circling me, and they were just beating the crap out of me until finally I go down. And then they just sort of loot my corpse.
Isn't it a terrible feeling being looted?
A little bit, yeah.
Like, I don't know if I mentioned it. Can you mind if I go into the looting of Big Tom?
Sure, go for it.
Normally, it's like described action. Like, I'll take your armor and all that. They didn't do that for me. They literally undid my armor and, like, pushed me to the side to get one arm out, threw me to the other side to get the other out, ripped the armor out from under me, took off my belt because it had all my pouches on it. I think one of them took my boots. It was because
I remember Bic Bun pulled some sort of little like trinket off of you. It was just like a little like pin or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, did you loot him? Like, what did you take? And he was like, I took all this, but here, you can have this. And I was like, okay, this must be like some important thing. Like, obviously this is like a big mod for them, which apparently it wasn't. But I was like, okay, this must mean something. So then when I was walking you to the woods and I couldn't kill you because people were watching, I was like, I'm going to give him back this pin. And it's going to be like a super friendly, like, we're friends now and I trust you. And like, here's your pin back. And then it turns out that pin meant absolutely nothing.
I found it in the woods earlier that morning. I should have said, like, it was my father's.
Yeah, this was my father's pin. That's what I thought it was. I thought it was like something meaningful, and I was going to be like, look, this is important, and I trust you. And it meant nothing. It was garbage.
If I had it back, I thought I was going to die.
You know, when I gave it to you, you just looked at me, and you were like, okay.
All right.
Is that everything you wanted to cover?
Yeah, that's everything I wanted to cover.
Cool, awesome.
Pretty much.
All in all, your lich was nightmarish, difficult, and very well balanced, with just enough risk of total annihilation.
It was a good fight.
It was good.
It was a good game, you guys.
I got tackled twice. I got hit at least 4 times. And I got nut-shotted twice.
Yeah, I was going to say,
no.
You got nut-shotted by someone, didn't you?
Yeah.
Man, when you NPC, you just get the crap beaten out of you. Like, that's just what happens. And if
Yeah,
you're
I've
the
got
big
a bunch
boss,
of, like,
it's like,
angry
bye.
nerds circling me.
When we
I was meeting with Sharon and Rob the other day, actually, and we were talking. Well, I was talking with them about the tournament, and somehow it came up. I was like, well, you know, every now and then you get hit in the nuts or you get hit in the sternum, which is like both places I've hit them, and they've had to like leave the game and go recoup. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
I remember it was the what were they? They were the Axis Supersede baddies, and they had these white like leotard things.
Yes, yeah.
And I could see like it was all very tight fitting, so I could see what I was hitting. And there comes Rob, and he's wiggling his tentacles.
I wasn't looking that closely.
Well, you missed something, my friend. Anyway, I fire, and like everything stops, and it slows down. And I watch the arrow leave, and it flies, and it's got a trajectory. And I just watch as it slow-mo hits him right in the goods. And it just like you saw him kind of jerk and then stop and then take a couple seconds and then continue. This guy took a 30-pound bow to the testes.
I've done that to him before as well.
But he didn't stop. He's an animal.
Yeah.
That would have felled a beast.
Sharon has had to stop us and be like, guys, please don't hit my boyfriend in the testicle so often. I would like to have children with him someday. He really is putting it all on the line for this LARP.
Yep.
So thank you, Rob. You're better than most of us.
I would like to make a mention about how Big Tom got turned.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Well, Big Tom, as you know, was brought into town to make friends and kidnap people.
Right.
And he was meant to be like a harsh, like evil character. But people were just so kind to him, and they were so friendly. And like I was trying to be nice to people and all that kind of stuff. And I remember when I got Pierre, I walked up behind him and I was like, "Let's go for a walk, you and I. We'll go see what we can find. You know, maybe I think someone's down there unconscious." And he walked out with me, and then I punched him, and he turned around and he was like, "I trusted you," and he hit the ground. And I was like, "Oh, that got me right in the feels." And then I brought him to Nero. And when I got Pendergast, I think he vowed to kill me one day or something. So that was alarming. So I was like, okay, well, maybe this isn't so bad. And then I got Lilium. And I remember hearing a scream in the woods, walking up into the woods, finding her unconscious, medicing her back up to 1 HP, lifting her unconscious, lifting her unconscious body, I should say, walking down the path, and then turning right instead of turning left, and hearing her go, "Wait a minute, this isn't where we're supposed to be going." And I'm like, "Shh, you'll enjoy life as a slave." And she's like, "No."
When you knocked me out and threw me over your shoulder, and then we ran into the big snake, I was even after I was knocked out, I was still confused. I still thought you had good intentions for me. Like, that's how much I liked Big Tom. I was like, oh, he must have knocked me out because he thought I couldn't outrun the big snake on my own. Maybe that's why he did it.
Why did you attack me afterward? But what really changed Big Tom's like self was not only how friendly people were to him and how willing they were to let him in, but when I was trying to kidnap Morpha, I was like, man, she's not leaving. She needs to go outside so I can kidnap her. And she's like moping around because the water circle is dead. So I pay somebody for their water mana, and I give them to her. And she looks at me. She's like, "You have a good soul." And I was like, "Oh, no!"
My heart.
And then from there, it was just downhill. And that one line, like everything else, definitely piled up against it. But that line was the straw that broke the camel's back. And if they hadn't have said that,
the player who plays Morpha is very good.
If they hadn't have said that, then like the death count would have been much higher.
Okay, before we sign off, what was the death count of your guys' game?
I think it was 7.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I think it was 7. But, okay, first off, 2 of them were night deaths, which shit happens sometimes. And I tried my best to save those 2 people. I was playing my critter, and I was wandering around, and I just found them on the outskirts of like town where no one was going to find them. And I was like, are you guys down? Yeah. So I dragged them out in the middle of the field, and I start doing my creature things. Hey, look at me. I'm a creature. Come over here and try and stop me. And people were walking up to me with flashlights. They saw my creature, and then they're like, no, I'm not dealing with this. They turn around and go away. And I was like, come on.
It would have been a lot worse.
And then I think someone died via egg mod which by the way we had no control over.
The egg mods were deadly. Like,
and it wasn't your guys' doing.
No, that was Rob.
Yeah.
Who else bit the bullet? It was Pendergast because y'all did a stupid. And I mean, the bandits were just following through with the threat.
I felt great and
Pendergast's
badass.
death was on you guys. It was, don't do this. If you do this, somebody will die. And then you went, I will do that.
I will do the thing.
And then he died, and you're like, what? He's dead.
Listen, as it said in the story, Asher knew a guy like Nero before, and she didn't trust that he was like, yeah, give me your money and I'll give you your friends back. I don't trust that shit.
Did you know they actually paid him like 35 rares?
They didn't get the money to him after.
They did.
Did they really?
They did. And then somebody attacked him during the trade.
No.
No, the money was thrown onto the ground.
That's not what happened. That's not how I
actually don't remember that either.
Yeah, I thought they were on their way with the money, and that's when I attacked.
Apparently they were like right next to each other, and the money was about to change hands when the fight happened. And
I just like not pay attention to anything ever?
I think you were so intent on just getting that shot off, you didn't.
This was later in the woods.
Oh,
like after Nero ran away the first time, because he still had 2 of their people.
Why were they going to give him money still?
Because he had
Sounds
two of their
full of
people hidden
suckers.
away. Either way, they butchered him and, and freed them. and saved the
Pendergast
day.
Who else?
died a good death.
Who else died? Because that's the only 4 I can remember.
I think a lot of people died from the...
Girl committed suicide.
Yeah.
I think Zero passed.
Yeah,
Harris,
that was
maybe?
no.
Harris?
Zero was one of the 2 night deaths that I
Oh,
mentioned before.
okay.
I think some people died because
actually,
of...
you know what? Zero died again, I think. Oh, no, someone died again afterwards when the Billy Bun thing happened.
the Billy
Yeah.
Bun. Somebody decided to go and be like, bloodlust, and then the
Project emotion bloodlust.
butchery.
That wasn't me. Just because the way he said that sounded like it wasn't me.
I still blame you.
It's still my fault. All right. So before we clue up, Tony, have you had anything good happen between August and now that you want to share with the world? Any good moments? I can think of one.
I've had a couple good moments. But I think I'll save that as a Foig thing, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I want to end the episode with a story that I heard at the very last game of season. We were all logging our characters, and I was finished logging, and I was sitting there talking to one of our more senior cast members. He plays Phineas. He plays Edwin of Toth. Is that his name? Edwin of Toth?
Edwin of Toth?
Yeah.
We
I
do not
think
speak
so.
of Edwin of Toth.
He played Captain Jack Siegel. He plays a lot of our really funny, really good characters. Gore. He's really great. And we were sitting there, and I asked him how long he had been LARPing for and how he started LARPing. And he told me he started LARPing in the 90s, and it was because he and his wife, who was also a cast member, and the both of them have contributed to, especially like in my early games, I'm pretty sure the reason that I returned and kept playing was because of some of the characters and some of the interactions I had with those two. But he said he and his wife had gone to sort of a sci-fi convention, and they were walking around, and I think they were outside the convention at the time, and they saw a group dressed as sort of Tolkien-esque, like Lord of the Rings characters. And he said, I looked at her and I said, that's really weird. And then we followed them. So they immediately thought it was really, really weird, but they were like intrigued. And they followed them to a panel that was talking about LARPing. And he was immediately interested, and the both of them started LARPing. And he said after his first game, he was so angry, he hated it. He was a 40-point character, and he was dying just to like stupid puppet animals, like we all do when we first go. But he said he was hooked, and he was so glad he kept with it. And that was, I think he said his first game was in '98, and he's still LARPing now. And I just thought that was a really nice story to hear at my very last game of the season from somebody who was...
Wow, 20
who
years
I-
of LARPing.
Yeah, who I really respect, yeah.
That's our future, my friend.
Yeah, that's going to be
I'm
us.
okay with that, though.
Dark days ahead.
One of these days, just a little, oh my gosh, what's that generation even going to be called? Generation Shithead is going to be like, how'd you start LARPing? And I'm going to be like, you don't know shit.
Sit down.
You
And
should
I'll
hear
s-
our
Let me
stories.
tell you the
Here's this
tale."
podcast. They'll be like, what's a podcast?
It doesn't just plug into your brain.
Well, I just wanted to leave this episode off on that nice little story because I won't get to tell it
Well,
any point until next year.
I look forward to the tournament that's coming.
The tournament is coming up. That's going to be our next episode.
Mhm.
Please don't hit me too hard.
I'm not hitting you.
You better be in it.
I'm not fighting.
Why not?
Because I run the tournament.
So?
I'm refereeing the tournament. I'm not going to be in it.
I know
Yeah,
you're
Tony-
not, but
look.
you have no excuse.
I've never done it. I've only run tournaments. I've never done the tournament.
Then fight in it. All you have to
But
do
I
is like
run the tournament. That's conflict of interest.
Not really.
I guess.
Everybody's watching.
You know what's so funny, Tony? We run this podcast together and we run this tournament together.
Aw, yeah.
We just like make a great team. Okay, yeah. Well, we'll be back in about a month with another episode, updating you on what happened at the 3rd annual tournament of Holdfast.
Oh, yeah.
It is a tournament with the. Oh my goodness, that sounds
sorry.
so loud. It's a tournament with the very best mages and fighters of Holdfast. This is going to be the biggest tournament. It's going to be a proper 8 bracket,
Oh,
Man.
awesome.
16-person tournament. It's going to be huge. Yeah.
Whoa.
So thank you for listening.
And we'll see y'all next time.
We'll see you next game. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
Well, thank you for having me.
We'll have to have you back sometime. We like to sign off here. I know you've never listened to the podcast, so we're going to have to teach you our sign off. We like to sign off by saying see you next game.
See you next game, Michael.
I'll see you next game.